We heard a little bit about the human side of building decarbonization in the panel this morning. We're now going to go to that subject entirely with our next session. We're going to focus on the human dimension of building decarbonization with a discussion about energy insecurity. Energy insecurity is a crisis that affects roughly 1 in 3 U.S. households. To help us understand that reality and what we can do about it, I am thrilled to welcome 2 remarkable guests to our stage. Diana Hernandez is a pioneering sociologist and an associate professor at Columbia's Mailman School of Public Health. She's also the lead author of Powerless, The People's Struggle for Energy, the first and most prominent book on energy insecurity in the United States. She'll be joined by Daphany Rose Sanchez, who is executive director of Kinetic Communities Consulting. She's born and raised in New York City public housing, and she spent her career organizing communities across every borough in the city around climate resilience and energy equity. She'll be moderating today's conversation. Please join me in welcoming Diana and Daphny to the stage.
Good morning? No, good afternoon. It's 3 o'clock, y'all. 3 o'clock. Good afternoon. All right. I was like, what the heck is happening here? Oh my God, this is so nice. Wait, are you gonna have it up? You're gonna have my phone? You have a photo? Yeah. Yeah? I like having side conversations when I'm moderating. So this photo here, I'm so honored to share the stage with Dr. Hernandez. This was the first time I met her. I was talking about clean heat, not the clean heat that y'all know today, but a clean heat that existed to help people get off of oil and onto another fuel that I shouldn't talk about.
Right.
And I remember being so nervous because I read your papers about energy insecurity, and I was like, oh my God, someone that gets it. Like someone that understands what it means to live in poverty and be scared of like turning on the lights. And I remember that this was the first event that I was allowed to go by myself, and I invited my dad. I was like, come, we're gonna learn about energy insecurity together. And it was so nice to see you because you were radiating with your beautiful smile, and you were so confident in sharing the information that I started getting confident. I'm like, oh wait, I shouldn't be scared. Like I should feel comfortable talking about the realities that we live in today. So fast forward over a decade now, no more clean heat, the ones that y'all know, we're doing electrification and decarb. It has been an honor to be here with you and to talk about energy insecurity. So thank you so much for allowing me to do this. All right, now let's get this party started.
Okay.
Dr. Hernandez. You know, you were a trailblazer talking about energy insecurity before anybody else started talking about energy insecurity. You set the path for the industry before it was cool, before people had stickers and marketing campaigns. Can you just tell me why you did that? Like, there's so many things that you could have studied. Why energy insecurity and why did you do that when you did, or when you studied it?
Well, first of all, good afternoon, everyone. Really wonderful to be here. I have the distinct privilege of being a sociologist and an academic, an active one, that gets to speak to people in the real world. And your audience is an important one because you all are kind of implementing, but to be in conversation with Daphny, who is both an amazing ambassador of the field and also of NYU, as a multi-degree holder from this institution, including most recently a master's degree in AI. I just want to congratulate you for the commitment to both the educational path and then thinking about how to apply it. I will say that we all come from different realities, and Daphny and I actually share a lot in common in terms of our upbringing in what is now considered to be disadvantaged communities. in Section 8 housing and public housing, and really representing if there is such a thing as the tale of two cities in New York City, which has long been the case and still is, then I think we are representing very much an alternative to a mainstream New York City. And I think that's where the work on energy insecurity originates. And it's also really about how do we represent and validate those experiences that don't always come to the fore as we are thinking about our ambitions and improving our housing stocks, the buildings in New York City to serve the purposes of residents and commercial tenants, et cetera. So what I will say is that energy insecurity, it's kind of interesting to be thinking about full circle moments. So in the 1970s, energy security really kind of rose to prominence in some ways because of the heating crisis, the oil crisis of the 1970s, which meant that people were, that the US really saw themselves at the whims of what was happening in the Middle East. And the stoppage around heating fuel deliveries and access. And what that really meant was that it put the US on a path toward energy security as a national security imperative. Now, the truth is that we have households that do not have energy security because they can't afford their utilities, because they live in homes that do not offer thermal comfort and do not function well enough to actually support habitability, and that under these circumstances, people are coping in ways that are compromising to health. Because in homes, for instance, where the heating is inadequate, people are indeed turning on their stoves. In fact, 1 in 5 New York City residents is actually doing that. And in some ways, the purpose of doing this work and continues to be to both elevate understanding of those experiences, and at the same time really be helping us all to be working toward solving a better defined problem set. Because I think that for as much as many of us in the room are thinking about solutions, they're only as good as the problems that we're seeking to solve. And when that's poorly understood, the solutions actually don't serve well.
Facts. So I can say it's facts. Absolutely. I want you to look around the room. Just look around to the people that are around you. You might know some people, you might not. It's crazy to think that 1 in 3 people, 1 in 3 New Yorkers, if y'all not from New York, I'm gonna let y'all use the New Yorkers title just for this hour. But 1 in 3 New Yorkers are rent burdened, which is wild. And I think people often assume, oh, we're talking, there's a little bit of racism, only black and brown people are rent burdened, or like low income people. But the reality is like 1 in 3 New Yorkers, 1 in 3 of the diverse set of 8.4 million people are struggling to pay their rent. And 25% of these people are struggling to pay their energy bills. So they're stressed out. So can you talk to me a little bit about this tension that we hear? Is it really a tension between decarbonization and affordability, and the work that you have done to help implementers and policy folks think of this tension from a different lens?
Yeah. Let me just say that sometimes we define the housing crisis as an affordability crisis. But actually, we have a housing habitability crisis. I think particularly for people who are living in older existing buildings, people that are living in multifamily buildings that are smaller, so 2 to 4 units, there are huge conditions issues in these buildings, and we know that from not just official city data, but we've also been working pretty closely with the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene to establish the numbers, not just around rent burden, and I would even go further than the energy burden questions, and really to measure and quantify energy insecurity in the city. And we worked on kind of 10 indicators that are across economic domain, so difficulty paying utility bills, having a disconnection, and having debt. And then also looking at questions of homes that are too hot and too cold. And then the fact that people are reducing their energy consumption or using kind of dangerous heating alternatives, not using their air conditioning and heating as a result of the concerns around utility bills. And the truth is that 28% of New York City residents actually mark 3 of those 10. So they are multiply burdened. They're not just burdened in one way, they're burdened in multiple ways. And in fact, 67% of New York City residents actually are checking at least one of those boxes. 40% of New York City residents are reducing energy consumption to save. And while in some ways that would sound great, the truth is that often materializes in people under-consuming energy and not being able to use a sufficient amount for the purposes of health and safety. So when we think about decarbonization and that link between rent burden and housing habitability burdens, what we're also really talking about is that energy insecurity is often the gateway. And that gateway is, I say today's disconnection, utility disconnection, is tomorrow's eviction. These things are really happening hand in hand. And in many ways, the energy issues that are underlying are often the signal that folks are kind of falling behind and they're not really able to keep up. And that ultimately means that there are these displacement risks. So decarbonization comes in some ways because ideally, decarbonization is supporting greater habitability, and it's also ideally supporting affordability. It doesn't always work that way, and we can talk a little bit about that. But the real need to make sure that as we're kind of focusing on decarbonization, we're focusing on it, first of all, because it continues to be the right thing to do, because this moment is an interesting test of our hypotheses. We've been building up for decades now under the assumption that decarbonization will be helpful for meeting climate goals. I think in that process, we haven't always been thinking about how decarbonization is serving the public and people, and how those goals are also really important. And if we're in a caring, and if decarbonization is caring work, if it is about caring for our environment and for our planet, then it also, I think people don't want to feel left behind in feeling cared for. And so decarbonization continues to have a role and a responsibility in many ways for doing that caring work that is people-oriented.
Whew. Speaking to my soul. Yes, please, round of applause, y'all. I know y'all are hungry. I try not to get emotional when I hear this, because you and I talk about the tale of two cities, and I'm about to start crying. Fuck. Sorry, cursing. I apologize. Can you talk to these engineers in the room and the program people about, like, what is the pathway forward? It's always so hard to hear you talk.
No. Okay, look. First of all, we always need inspiration, and I feel like to the extent that people that are doing the real work and speaking truth, like, that inspires. And I think right now many of us are lacking in inspiration and feeling like our cups are not full enough. So we need to be continuing to dive deep and dig, and sometimes that actually means stepping back. I've spent the last year at Harvard, and I'm heading back to Cambridge tonight. So really happy to be back home, but also realizing that it's been good to step back because this moment is chaotic. And what we know about, let's say, the core issue of energy insecurity is that it's draining for many people, and that constant exposure to energy insecurity, and that draining effect of it leaves people feeling really depleted. And so many of the, and I'll give an example. There's so many examples, and there are the book Powerless, The People's Struggle for Energy, which came out about a year ago.
Which you all need to go buy.
and I think some of you will win. Nothing like winning, and we'll talk a little bit about the sports analogies that are so critical. It's full of stories. It's full of statistics, because some people's minds work where they are only convinced that there's an issue if they have like stats and coefficients associated with an issue, a problem. But I'm also really motivated by stories. So I'll tell you the story about a woman, not a New York story. I'll tell you a story, a Phoenix story. A woman, Lauren, who's featured in the book. And, you know, it's sometimes easy to miss an issue like energy insecurity because it happens alongside other hardships. And in Lauren's case, she presented at the Energy Assistance Office seeking help with a water disconnection, actually. And they were able to help her, but only to a certain extent, because she had to like be able to come up with the other, you know, few hundreds of dollars to like make up the difference so that it could zero out her account. In the meantime, she was actually living in a home that had multiple housing quality problems, leaks. The cooling system in Phoenix, no less, was not working, and she had also a prepaid meter, and that prepaid meter was out, and so she was consistently living through these like intermittent shutoffs that were like labeled as voluntary because it was a prepaid meter that she wasn't able to continue to feed, essentially. And there were domestic violence issues and a labor, like employment problem where she wasn't being paid by her employer on a timely and consistent basis. And in many ways, if you just like sat down and spoke to Lauren, as I did, you would say, oh, this is just a matter of poverty. And this problem is like so seedy and it's so like layered. How could you possibly, first of all, just single out the energy issues, but also how do you go about solving these problems? What I will say is that Lauren's story is one actually where she had lots of issues finding a home, in part because her mixed race family, also her partner had a criminal history that barred them from living in some of the more desirable homes and neighborhoods that were marked by opportunity, and that being locked out meant that she wasn't able to live in a home that actually was well functioning. So her energy stories really are rooted in many ways in housing discrimination, in the lack of affordable housing, and housing habitability problems that then presented themselves as like the lack of energy at any given point, and a refrigerator that wouldn't work, a heating system and a cooling system that were unavailable and inaccessible. These are big problems, and they're really related to how we build, how much we're building housing, how we're building housing, how we're retrofitting existing housing, and how we're determining who is deserving and undeserving of good housing, of affordable, decent, consistent housing to begin with.
Oh man, you're speaking the words. I hope all of y'all sleep with these words at night. Change all your programs and all your policies and all your financing. No, this is very valid. So I don't know how many of y'all know about WAP, not the Cardi B song. All right, and the Cardi B song. So we gotta mix the two, right? How many of y'all knew that you needed a social security number to go through WAP? Okay, a lot less people. what the hell does my status have to do with getting energy efficiency programs? It's crazy. So I share this example to your point, right? Like we really have to think about, if we care about decarbonization, what are the arbitrary rules and program structures and requirements that we are putting on top of people in order to get the greenhouse gas reductions and the kilowatt and therm reductions that we need? So it is really critical to your point. What is our true end goal? If we want to achieve these ambitious decarbonization goals, which we can do, we have to think about how do we eliminate the unnecessary administrative burden that we're putting onto people that already have too much stuff to do. Make sure I don't curse again. Apologize, Urban Green Council. So with the last 45 seconds, because damn, time be flying, what were you... damn is not a curse, right? I'll be fine. Nobody has kids in the audience. What is the last thing that you want the engineers and the policy and program folks and the lenders to take home with them and to instill into all their efforts? And the next year we'll hear about how much they did what you told them.
Okay, perfect. Well, given that we're actually wearing Knicks colors, and I promised a sports analogy as someone who really is sports agnostic, I will say...
Knicks and poor.
I will say that I want to say, yes, absolutely. Let's think about all the administrative burdens and all of that stuff. But I'm going to speak to you all for real. I think that there are 3 things that you all really need to remember right now. And that's that we need creativity to get through this moment. We need courage to get through this moment. And we need commitment. And that commitment, in many ways, is reflected in the picture that we started in. Daphne and I were doing this long before it was cool, and long before it felt like it was, embedded in mainstream. And now, more than ever, our commitment to these issues is being tested. And should we not actually follow through and bend down and not play defense, and in fact not play offense, shame on us. This is our moment. It continues to be our moment, and if we don't really fully feel like we need to win, we won't. This is our moment where we stand up not just for the planet and not just for profits, but for people. And maybe all 3 of those things, if we think profits are really that necessary. I also think we need to be really tempering our greed as a society. And I feel like that's also something that we are seeing on display. So we are out of time, but I will remind you that right now we need courage, we need creativity, and we need to lean in to that commitment and to that vision of winning for all of us. That is so critical right now. We want the Knicks to win. Go Knicks. But also go decarbonization, go energy efficiency, go energy affordability, go energy security at the household level. We need all of that. Thank you.
Thank you.